Predict, pick, and prevail in your fantasy football leagues with Nick Giacobbe and Nick Cap. From breakouts to busts, superstars to sleepers, these are the guys that will help you achieve fantasy glory. This is the PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast.
Welcome everybody to week 14 and welcome to the PrimeTime Fantasy Football Podcast. We give you our predictions, our picks, with the hopes that we help you prevail today in week 14 and the rest of your 2024 fantasy football season, which just so happens to be the fantasy football playoffs. So very, very important week. I know a lot of you joining us today are need help in your matchups. There's a ton of bye weeks, a ton of running backs that are out. Derrick Henry in the Ravens, Jonathan Taylor in the Colts, Ramondre Stevenson in the Patriots. I think I might be missing like 3 other bye weeks, something like that. There's a ton of buys, a ton of the Texans, a ton of Texans that you would be starting this week that are not there. So I know that everybody needs help. I need my own help, and I'll be tinkering with my lineup this morning. So huge fantasy football week for those that need to get in the playoffs, secure a bye, and maybe you have a points title like me and Nick do. So huge, huge week. Cannot underestimate it. Nick, this is the first week of the playoffs, in my opinion. I know you're not out if you lose, but this is the first week of your playoffs. This is what you play fantasy football for, weeks like this.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is the big time. It's win or go home week. It's very, very important. It's your time to put up or shut up. And we always say you win on the waivers, you win near the end of the season. You need to know how to adjust your lineup when shit goes haywire. Listen, I got Breece Hall, who decided, we're gonna get hurt for the first time all season. Just before your playoffs when you have your other running backs on bye, So it's time to figure out what those changes are and drop those questions in the chat because Nick and I are here to save your week.
Yeah, I'm in my Dynasty League, and so my opponent has a ton of buys. And here's the unfortunate thing. Me and my opponent are tied. The winner gets the buy, the loser does not. The unfortunate part about that is my opponent faced somebody 2 weeks ago that benched 4 players that should have been played and had 4 buys in their lineup. So I got screwed in a sense, or my buy would technically be locked up. So I need to win today. He has a couple guys on buy. I have a couple guys on buy. Trying to figure out the running back situation for myself. I have Gus Edwards in my lineup right now. I don't love it, but I'm sure we're going to get a lot of questions regarding players that I even have in my own lineup. So maybe Nick will help me set my own lineup. I'll end up making a decision. But my personal running back situation is I have Gus Edwards in. My bench has Kareem Hunt. I did have Kamani Vidal, but I dropped him. So at this point, it's Gus Edwards, Kareem Hunt, or somebody on the waivers. But So without further ado, this is the PrimeTime Fantasy Football Podcast live show for week 14. Thank you guys for joining us. Drop your questions in the chat. We'll prioritize your questions. If we don't have any questions, we will go to our game-by-game preview. We will talk about the injuries that are plentiful, bye weeks, etc., etc. So we have some people in the chat already from our buddy Deshaun. What's up, fellows, from Victoria? Good morning. And maybe our first question is from Deshaun, our guy that rocks with us every single week. And make sure to drop a like in the video, guys. If you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, I saw one pop up. We do appreciate that. If you're watching on Instagram, we appreciate that as well. But we do recommend going to YouTube or Facebook, specifically YouTube. You could see where you are in the queue. You could see the list of questions. I will be checking Instagram, but due to StreamYard's policy, Instagram's on a separate tab on my computer and can't monitor the chat as closely. So from the Sean, should I risk it with Ladd McConkey being a game time go or go with Leggett or Ray McLeod in PPR? What do you think, Nick?
I advise someone to play McLeod over McConkey already. I do not think he's going to play. And even if he does, Trent McDuffie is the number 1 slot corner for that team, and he's been locking down slot receivers all season. So McConkey does worry me in that regard. Even if he is out on the field, I'm worried he's not going to have the best game of his career going up against that Chiefs defense and Trent. So you hope he could be healthy and you hope he can be out there, but I don't think he's going to have a safer high ceiling game where Ray McLeod in that Kirk Cousins revenge game against Brian Flores is one of the worst secondaries in football. I think there's so much upside for him in this matchup.
Not only the worst secondary in football, but the Vikings allow the most fantasy points to wide receivers, an average of 32.9. That's a reason why I have both Kirk Cousins and Drake London on my all boom team. I'll ride at my co-host here. Let's go with Ray McLeod. knowing that McConkey will have a tough matchup here.
Mm.
From Dylan Fink, game day. It is game day. Sorry for the long post. That's okay. We love your long posts. Full PPR, one quarterback. Derek Carr, Aiden O'Connell, Cooper Rush. Let's start with that one, Nick. Who are you rocking with? So Carr.
Giants.
Carr has the Giants. AOC has the I'm sorry, I have tabs open everywhere right now. I know Cooper Rush has the Bengals, and I know the Bengals have a positive matchup, but I don't like playing.
He has the Bucks, Aiden O'Connell.
And he has the Bucks. I think you got to roll with Carr.
I would go Cooper Rush. I think that game's going to be super high scoring. It's a bad defense. They played Thursday they have not played a football game since Thanksgiving. For some perspective, there's a lot of rest in there, and the Cowboys' offense was starting to look better. I don't think he's going to be elite, but if this is your selection, I think Cooper Rush has the best upside.
I feel like Carr's played a little bit better over the last few weeks. He has. So Derek Carr, since returning from the injury, has over 13 fantasy points in all 4 of those games. I know it's not a crazy number, but in his last 3, we have 20.5, 18.7, 14.6. There's no more Taysom Hill for the season, so I don't think you'll see another quarterback step foot on the field for the Saints, so that's huge. You won't be stealing touchdowns. Obviously, a ton of dump-off opportunity for Alvin Kamara, facing a terrible defense in the Giants, who's decimated and may have quit on the season at this point. I would roll with Derek Carr. I really don't want to trust Aiden O'Connell or Cooper Rush in what could be a must-win game for you. I would rather trust Derek Carr.
Yeah.
One tight end, Juwan Johnson, who would be the stack with Derek Carr if it's the same league at least. I guess you can specify that. Pat Freiermuth going up against the Browns, and Dawson Knox going up against the Rams. That game's got to be high on over under that Rams one.
Yeah, I mean, we could take a quick look. It's at 49.5. That is the highest on the week. So
it would be the second highest. He threw that Lions game in that did cash. That over under was 51.5. I didn't think it was 65 or something. The number.
Yeah, it went 65. Crazy high. That was
crazy.
Game. It is tied with the Bengals and the Cowboys as well. Buffalo obviously favored, so higher implied point total. But nevertheless, I would go with the highest over under game. That's typically where I would trend to. If you have a question at tight end, which would. But
isn't Kincaid suiting up today? That's the only thing that.
Is he playing?
I didn't see him in the injury report when I looked last night. He's questionable. Let's see if there's an update this morning from Fantasy Life. He's not expected to play, according to Mike Garafolo. He did practice this week, so I would roll with Nick's opinion here, and I would play Dawson Knox, knowing that Kincaid is not expected to play. And then one wide receiver, one flex. Nick Westbrook-Akine, who me and Nick have been shouting from the heavens on the show for the past month or so. Devontae Smith returning from the hamstring injury. I'm very happy about that. Braylon Allen filling in for Breece Hall with the Jets. Okay, so we need one flex and one receiver. I think Devontae Smith should be locked into your lineups coming off the injury. I know it's an injury that lingers, but he's too talented. The offense is too talented. The Panthers don't have the best defense. I would lock in Devontae Smith at the receiver position first.
Totally agree.
And then your flex. Who are you rolling with, Nick? I'll let you get the Jets talk in.
I would go with Nick Westbrook-Akine. The touchdown upside going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars, one of the worst secondaries in football for sure. I have Will Levis on my all boom team because I think you should absolutely trust one of the most reliable quarterbacks in football. Obviously, kidding on that one. I think Will Levis is going to have a week against this Jags defense, and Nick Westbrook-Akine would be one of the biggest benefits. Now, he is a touchdown or bust guy. Here's the thing. He's gotten like 8 touchdowns in his last 9 games or something like that, maybe 7 of 8. So it's been consistent. Assume it stays consistent and just hope that you get the tutty.
I'll roll with your opinion here. I'm worried the Jets are another team kind of like the Giants where they're just kind of done. There's a lot of injuries on that team. The line is banged up. The line was already bad. The Dolphins have kind of heated up in a sense. I know they didn't win last week against the Packers, but they still kind of have this effort mentality. Let's just go win football games and see what happens. Maybe we can make a run, and this could be the turning point for the Dolphins. And then one kicker. We love kicker questions. Richard, Bass, Dicker, and Cade York. Thanks in advance. I think we like the highest over-under games. I'm pretty sure LA's home in that one, so it'll be in a dome. Yeah, I would go with Tyler Bass.
I think that's a good rationale. I'm fine rolling with that. Yeah, that's good with me.
Kickers are always so tough. It's so random. There'll be one kicker every week that goes off for like 20 points.
Yeah.
Good luck, Dylan. Thank you for the questions. Patrick Hodgins, 1 PPR, need a flex. Braylon Allen, Nick Westbrook-Akine, or Marvin Harrison. I think Marv is too talented to bench. No.
What did Marv do 2 weeks ago against Seattle?
I don't.
I'll check.
Okay.
Well, I already said
I'm leaning Marv. I'm leaning Marv because even if he didn't have a great game in Seattle 2 weeks ago, the division matchups are so wonky, especially in the NFC West for so many years. They're so wonky. And I know they have Witherspoon and Woolen, but they don't have a Jalen Ramsey over there, so I'm not exactly scared of the Seattle corners. The biggest issue with Harrison is that Kyler's missing him on a lot of opportunities. There was a whole video that I saw on my Twitter this week. It's like 6 minutes long or something like that, and it was just misses of Kyler to Marv, or is Marv just wide open, just like, hey, what are we doing? Yeah. I'm doing the YMCA here, and nothing. So I think Marvin Harrison's your best talent. I would love to know how badly you need this win, or maybe if you're projected to lose or not, because Marv might be your biggest boomer bust, and Westbrook-Akine is probably a big boomer bust too. But Marvin Harrison isn't touchdown or bust, or Westbrook-Akine is. Braylon Allen's probably your safest play, knowing he's going to get a ton of volume.
My only concern with Braylon Allen is I think they have another rookie, Isaiah Davis, who got a lot of touches last week. So I don't know if Braylon Allen's as locked and loaded as you might have expected at the start of the year. I still think he'll have the line share of the work, but it might be a 60-40 split rather than a 70-30 or 80-20, which you would kind of hope for with a handcuff. Marv's last game against Seattle, 6 targets, 3 catches, 47 yards. Not a great day. In Seattle off the bye too. So
the 6 targets are good though. I think it was raining that day. I mean,
okay. I mean, yeah, you could roll with Marv is the highest upside, and Westbrook is he has a risk. So I mean, he's not as locked and loaded as I always make him out to be. But yeah, I would probably roll with Marv if it was my own team.
Okay. From Craig Wayne, Tyrone Tracy going up against the Saints, or Braylon Allen going up against Dolphins PPR?
I go Tracy. I again, to my point, I think Isaiah Davis is going to get some touches. Tyrone Tracy is the lead back in this backfield. Last week wasn't great, but New Orleans has one of the worst defenses in football at the moment. They allow a ton of points to receivers, running backs out all across the yard. They have been bad for fantasy, and Tyrone Tracy is the one guy on that team. Him and Neighbors are the 2 guys on that team that always get workload, and I think it's going to continue for Tracy.
I'm right there with Nick. We've been all over Tracy this season. The Saints allow the 5th most fantasy points to running backs, an average of 23 points per game. Roll with Tracy. I'm surprised Tracy wasn't on one of our all boom and all bust teams. And if you're a new viewer, thanks for joining the show. We do 2 shows during the week, and our Friday shows are all boom, all bust teams. And we talk about 7 boom players each and 7 bust players each that we think will boom or bust for that week. I'm surprised we did not have Tracy on either one of our teams this week, but
I put him on it so often where I was like, I'm going to pivot.
He has been pretty consistent on one of the teams this week. From Deshaun, 16-man question. We love Deshaun's 16-man questions every single week. 16-man PPR. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Xavier Legette, Will Dissly, or Dissly at the flex. I guess I'm not sure what the double Dissly question is for.
Maybe it was a typo.
Or McCormick. Maybe that was the typo.
Yeah. I still don't want to trust the Bucs.
I kind of want to go with MVS.
Yeah, I feel like MVS has been the most explosive from the group. I do not want to play Xavier Legette against that Eagles secondary. But I guess McCormick might get the line share of the work for the Raiders. But, do you really want the Raiders' 4th running back? Probably not. Yeah, I'd go MVS, and I would chase the upside of that deep touchdown. I think he has 4 touchdowns the last 3 weeks, at least a touchdown.
I'm trying to get his stats now. I'm looking for him on Fantasy Pros.
He's at that high ceiling for the last few weeks. So, I guess I would take the shot on the Marvin Harrison Jr. deep touchdown, especially the 16-man league, because if you get that big touchdown with 6 buys, you probably win the week.
I got it here. So over his last 3 games, his targets aren't great. He only has 3+ targets in each of those 3 games. But in each of those 3 games, he has 3 touchdowns. He has Over 80 yards in 2 of them. His points are 25, 16, and 11. I would just go with that. And the Giants defense is not good, and I think they're checked out as a team right now. So I would also go with Marquez Valdez-Scantling. From Patrick, Will Levis or Justin Herbert? Lamar Jackson's on a bye. Thoughts on not playing a defense in Week 14 in order to get your Week 15 playoff lineup set? He says, I have the number 1 spot locked up, win or lose, projected to win. So basically, if you're saying that you'd rather drop your defense to pick up somebody, I think that's what you're stating, but let us know exactly what you mean by that, because you shouldn't have to set your lineup today for Week 15. But if you're stating you don't like your defensive matchup, you want to pick up maybe the Colts defense that's on bye, but don't want to drop anybody else, I'm all for that if your matchup just legitimately doesn't matter this week. Me and Nick play in leagues where you actually win money for having the most points. I know a lot of leagues don't do that. So in a league like that, we can't afford that if we're in the points race. But if you're in a league where your matchup legitimately doesn't matter, play for the playoffs no matter what you have to do. But to answer your quarterback question, Nick, I'll let you go first since Will Levis is on your all-boom team.
I do have Will Levis on the all-boom team. I was actually thinking if I wanted to play Herbert in another league today, because I feel like that Kansas City matchup might be a little bit better because the running game has been so stagnant without J.K. Dobbins. They're not going to move the ball against Kansas City unless they are putting it in the air. But then again, I didn't want to rely on Quentin Johnston on that one. So I love Will Levis's matchup. I think he's a great value, especially in DFS. I'm riding him in a DFS roster. So here's some of the reasons I have him on the all-boom team. The Jags allowed second most points to the quarterback position. Last 4 weeks, he has been consistent, 7 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, averaging 240 yards per game in that span, and he has 15 plus points in all 4 of those games. You also have the Nick Westbrook-Ikhine hot streak of the touchdowns and Calvin Ridley's first revenge game against the Jacksonville Jaguars after not giving him that big contract that he was expecting. So I think it makes a lot of check marks towards a big Ridley game and a big Will Levis game.
Okay. And he does say he'd pick up a defense that's on bye. I'm curious as to what defense you have right now and who you would pick up. I know the Colts are on bye and they have a pretty good lineup of matchups within the playoffs. So my guess is you're aiming for the Colts, but let us know who you're looking at.
Atlanta's another good one. I mean, they haven't been a great defense, but they're going to go Raiders, Giants back to back over the next 2 weeks. So they're one I've been trying to get because not a lot of people want them anyway.
Yep. All right, from John Cobo. Thanks for joining the show, John, like you do every week. Kyler Murray against the Seahawks or Russell Wilson going up against the Cleveland Browns. It's a 4-point passing, 6-point rushing, so a normal scoring league. Nick, Call of Duty's been out for like a month and a half now, and I think Kyler Murray has not had the best stats since Call of Duty came out.
He did when it immediately came out. It's kind of since the bye week, it's tailed off a little bit.
He didn't get the pre-order. He didn't get the pre-order bonus. He did have a good number last week. So Kyler's last 3. I want to get a Seattle number because that's the one that really matters, and I'd love to get his Seattle numbers career if I can find it. His game at Seattle, he only scored 11.3. He had 285 passing yards, no touchdowns. He only had 9 rushing yards and no touchdowns. So he did not really have a good game against Seattle. His last 3 games are 28, 11.3, and 17.2. The 11.3 was the one against Seattle. I think Russell Wilson just played the Browns as well. So I want to get Russ's numbers up.
Yeah.
Well, do you have a strong opinion? Do you have a strong opinion at this point, or are you kind of
not really? I mean, it could really go either way. If I were to lean one, I'd probably lean whoever scored more points 2 weeks ago in the division matchup.
Russell Wilson at 13.8, so a little bit more. I think I kind of want to lean Russell Wilson. I mean, since starting for the Steelers, he only has 1 game under double-digit fantasy points. He has 3 of them over 19 fantasy points, which I don't think Kyler's done in a while. I mean, I think I kind of want to go Russell Wilson, as crazy as that sounds. My only concern is that George Pickens might not play. He's projected to play, but that's Russell Wilson's favorite target. I think I would base this matchup on the status of George Pickens, which you'd know until about 11:30 in the morning. And I know that sounds crazy, but Pickens has been Russell Wilson's first read in every single game. They don't really have another legitimate target. I think that's how I would base this matchup. So at 11:30, or the inactive list should come out at 11:30. And what's the weather? Let's figure out what the weather is, because I know it's an AFC North matchup. Can you please get me the weather just in that Browns game?
Sure. We could take a look.
At Pittsburgh, right? Because the last game was in the snow. Yeah, they're at Pittsburgh. You just give me the weather in that game. So if it's windy or rainy or snowy, that might affect my decision. But I would say at 11:30, if your inactive list comes out and George Pickens is active, and if you're watching Twitter and he does his pregame warm up and he's good to go, I would play Russell Wilson. But if George Pickens is inactive, I'd play Kyler Murray.
Okay.
While Nick's looking up the weather, this is the Primetime Fantasy Football Podcast, Week 14 live show. For your first-time viewer or listener, thank you so much for joining the show. We do answer the questions as they come in a queue format, so please be patient as we try to give the most in-depth fantasy analysis that we can. You can find the show all over social media, all over YouTube. We drop shows during the week on our YouTube channel in an audio-video format, and then on all audio streaming platforms, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Anchor. 2 shows a week on Tuesdays and Fridays. If you're watching live and you haven't already, please drop a like on this video, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. We really would appreciate that. You can also hit that bell icon so you get notifications every single time we go live or post a new video. We're also on social media, the most active platforms, Twitter and Instagram. Twitter is PrimeTimeFFPod. Instagram, Primetime Fantasy Football Podcast. We can answer all of your questions during the week when we do not have live shows.
So it says typical AFC North matchup, windy and no rain, no snow. So
okay,
just cold.
All right. Windy. So my stance stands Russell Wilson if George Pickens is playing.
Got it.
From South Sea, would you start Najee Harris over a limited neighbor? So here's the report on Malik Neighbors, Nick, just in case you didn't see it. I'm going to pull up the exact report. And I have Malik Neighbors in my dynasty lineup that I told you guys already that I need to win. Giants wide receiver Malik Neighbors listed as questionable for Sunday due to a hip flexor injury and a lingering groin issue. Will try to play versus the Saints, but the team wants to see how he feels in pregame warmups. And as one source said, it would be more of a limited role, according to Adam Schefter. Now, we've seen situations before where they say it's going to be limited and a player goes off for 200 yards. So, Nick, what are your thoughts on this one?
So I had both these guys on the all-bust team. Najee Harris 2 weeks ago put up 7.4 points in this matchup. Malik Neighbors, I said temper expectations because he's every single game has been over 7 targets. But he has not eclipsed 15 points since week 7. So I don't know. I don't trust Najee Harris in this matchup just based off what history tells us. And in the same regard, like Malik Neighbors does not have the quarterback play to maintain or have explosive weeks. But if I had to pick between the two of them, I would pick the upside of Neighbors, knowing that he has that 7 target share, that the floor will be safe for Neighbors. And you would think the same for Najee, but it's literally Najee's worst game of the season, even with Justin Fields at quarterback or Russell Wilson. So I do not like the Najee matchup.
I think Najee's your safer play. I mean, looking at his last 4 weeks, it's double digits. It's 3 out of 4, 24.9 points last week.
It's not double-digit one.
It was the Brown one, but I'm worried about a limited role for Neighbors without a good quarterback. And if I'm the Giants, why would I force Neighbors in there? Why would you force your all-pro? Not all-pro. This should not be saying that. You're close to Pro Bowler, your stud receiver on the field for as many snaps as possible when he's dealing with not just 1, but 2 injuries towards the end of the season. You don't want something that's going to linger into the offseason, so that does concern me a bit. I think Malik Neighbors is your Hail Mary, all boom, all bust play, and I think Najee Harris is your kind of standard safer play if you want a safer floor. That's a decision that you could make. I would personally start Neighbors. I am starting Neighbors, but I'm not happy about it. And sometimes that's what happens in fantasy. I've started Jonathan Taylor for half the season, and I'm not happy about it.
Okay.
From Extras, Travis Etienne or Tank Bigsby. Don't know if this is PPR or non-PPR, but I'm not 100% sure how much that matters at this point. I think I would start Etienne, but man, neither of them really look good. I thought Tank was going to take over this backfield, and then he didn't.
Yeah. This is a tough matchup either way. Do you have another pivot option? Let us know.
Yeah, I would like to know if you have another pivot option. I mean, the Titans have allowed the 5th fewest fantasy points to running backs, an average of 16.2. I think they did face a couple weeks. I mean, Etienne hasn't scored double digits since. I just want to make sure this is PPR before I say this. Etienne has not scored double digits since week. I think it's week 5, but I don't want to give the wrong. Yes, so it's week 1, 2, 3, 4. Week 5 is the last time ETN scored double digits. Since then, -0.1, then he was hurt. 5, 5.3, 6.3, and 8.8. I want to look at Bigsby here. I got to scroll all the way down. So bear with me for a second. If you have pivots, please put them in the chat below and we could try to help you out with that. Travis Homer might be a sneaky play. The Bears backs are banged up. No Roshan Johnson. Swift looks like he's going to play. But a lot of fantasy analysts have been talking about Travis Homer. And as a Seahawks fan, I know a good chunk of Travis Homer. So that might be a sneaky play. Maybe who's the third back for the Jets, Nick, that you were talking about? Isabella?
Isaiah Davis.
Isaiah Davis. Okay. I'm gonna have to search his take. Bigsby Fantasy Pros. Do you have a take if it's just these two? Bigsby. Okay. So I'm gonna look at. I have Bigsby's game log. He last eclipsed double digits, and I do like double digit numbers. He eclipsed double digits in week 8 and week 7, but since then 2.2, 0.4, and 4.5. He did a 4.5 last week. I would play Bigsby very, very reluctantly, and I would hope you have another pick.
Listen, this is a tough matchup either way. I do not want to play the running back of Mac Jones. I do not think it's a good situation either way. So just let us know if you have another pivot option.
Yep. All right. So the defenses that Patrick has available are the Saints and get the Ravens or Chargers. I think the Ravens is a great defense and should not be on waivers in any league.
Well, the Ravens have not been a good fantasy defense. I would rather
but their playoff schedule is the Giants, the Steelers, and the Texans. I know those last two are tough, but the Texans, outside of Joe Mixon, haven't looked great offensively. Let's talk about it. The Steelers, when they played the Ravens, only scored 18 points. So I think you'd at least want the Ravens for the Giants matchup.
Yeah, that's the one that you wanted because the quarterback's not going to dominate the secondary there. But the Chargers have been one of the 2 or 3 best defenses in football. They get the Patriots in championship week. Maybe that's a good spot for them.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to play
those spots the next 2 weeks. Maybe not.
I would go get both the Ravens and the Chargers if you can and figure out that middle week.
Yeah, I agree.
Week. From Deshaun, would you bench Neighbors with him being limited snaps? It just depends on who you're benching him for. If your next question is about benching Neighbors, half PPR, Ray McLeod, or Keon Coleman, or MVS, if this is about Neighbors, let us know.
I'd take Neighbors over that bunch if this is your second wide receiver, with Neighbors being the one, I'd go McLeod.
I would play McLeod over Neighbors if that's the question. If it's not the question, let us know. But we can't tell you to bench Neighbors without knowing who your other option is. From Dan, half PPR, Will Dissly or Evan Ingram, and would you start either of those guys at flex over Marquez Valdes-Scantling? I don't want to double flex the tight end, so I would rather start MVS in the flex. I'm not sure how you feel about that one.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Which tight end would you take?
I'm looking up, defensively. The Titans allow the 6th, 7th, 9th fewest points to tight ends. That's not crazy. The Chiefs are actually bad against tight ends. They allow the 4th most points to tight ends at 13.2. This could be the Will Dissly game. And, they're tougher against receivers. They're really, really tough against running backs. I think this could be the Will Dissly game, so I'll play Will Dissly.
Me too, especially if McConkey's out. If he's out, Dissly might be the most reliable pass-catching option on the team.
From Victoria, with so many teams on bye, who is a good deep sleeper to pick up to save your week? I'm not sure if you're going to find one to save your week per se, but if you're thin at running back, I think Travis Homer is one you should definitely look at. I'll read off the Bears situation here from Schefter. It's in this giant thing here. So Bears running back DeAndre Swift is listed as questionable for Sunday due to a quad injury. He's expected to play. Roshan Johnson is out. I don't think Swift practiced this week. If he did practice, it was limited on Friday, but I was watching the practice report. I don't think he practiced this week. I think Travis Homer is a sneaky pickup and a sneaky play. But in terms of a deep waiver play that could save your week, you're looking at a touchdown or bust guy on top of that. If Nick Westbrook-Ikine is still on your waivers, that's one I would definitely go for. I'm not sure what his availability is. We've had him on our waiver wire segment for 3 straight weeks now, so I'm not sure what his availability is, but I would go with him. Or the last one I would say is Parker Washington, who had double-digit fantasy points last week with Mac Jones. It's a tough defensive matchup, but they defied the odds last week. They could do it again.
I like Amir Abdullah. Last 3 weeks, 2 weeks ago, he had 10. Last week, 3 weeks ago, 10. 2 weeks ago, 17. And last week, he only had 7.8, but that was against Kansas City, who shuts down running backs. He also got his most carries in any game that he's had this year. With the team being without Madison and White, I think it's his backfield.
All right. Next up from Gerald, PPR, Jerry Jeudy, Gerard. My eyes are not working right now. All right. Jerry Jeudy, Calvin Ridley, James Conner. So Jerry Jeudy going up against the Steelers. Calvin Ridley going up against the Jags. I think I like that matchup. That sounds great to me. And James Conner going up against my Seahawks. I'm between Conner and Ridley. I know you're a big Ridley guy, but we spoke last week about James Conner just being like Mr. Reliable over there for the Cardinals. So, who would you rather have in this one?
I want to take a look. We got to give Jerry Jeudy some more credit.
He had a ridiculous game on Monday night. Maybe I'm doubting too much.
He's like wide receiver 12 on the year now after the last couple weeks, which is nuts. Let's see.
Connor's been Mr. Reliable. He's
14.
Okay.
The last 5 weeks, 12.9, 14.3, 26.2, 14.5 against Pittsburgh, and 40.5. The least amount of targets he had in any game was 6. He's averaging about 9 to 10.
Jabo's going to sling it.
I'm going to go with Jerry Jeudy. I think that those numbers are absolutely insane. And we know Jameis Winston, you get the good with the bad, and the good is great for your fantasy team. So I'm happy to roll with Jeudy. My number 2 would be Ridley. James Conner in this matchup 2 weeks ago, worst game of the year, least amount of carries in the on the season, with a whopping, I have the number here.
You're going to beat me to it. I was pulling it up. Well, I actually do have it up.
All right, go for it.
His number against
Seattle 2 weeks ago.
Oh, you're talking about Conner. I thought you were talking about Ridley.
Oh, okay.
I have Ridley's numbers up.
Okay, so go ahead. Conner had a bad game. I think it was like 7.
He did not. Yeah, I mean that was a very low scoring game. It was an NFC West like slugfest. I'm going to go with Ridley here. He's over double-digit fantasy points in 4 of his last 6 matchups. He's had some tougher matchups in between. Facing the Jaguars defense, it allows the 3rd most fantasy points to wide receivers, an average of 31.8. Nick is all over Levis this week, thinks he should be started in lineup. So if Levis has a good game, Ridley's going to have a good game. I do understand the Jeudy take. However, I could see that game being really low scoring, a real defensive, just classic AFC North, like punch him in the gut kind of game. So I'll take the Ridley matchup, knowing that I think the more points could be scored in it.
Yep. Okay.
From Mike Duke, pick 2 standard. So we're looking for touchdowns here. James Conner, Durendo, Braylon Allen, and Bucky Irving. I think Bucky's slated to play.
He is. I saw the report last night that he's trending towards playing. I'd go Bucky and Durendo.
I want to go Bucky and Conner, but I just want to double check something real quick. Yeah, the Seahawks allow 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Like Seahawks are the 13th most fantasy points to running backs, which isn't crazy, but still, I think Connor's going to have a better game than he did 2 weeks ago. I'm going to go with Conner. I don't really want to play 49ers this week. The Bears are good. The Bears are a good defense.
Yeah, I want Durendo. I want any.
Trent Williams is out too. I mean that's not good. No Trent Williams this week.
That's fine. Durendo will be good between the tackles.
All right. From John Caldwell, Tyreek Hill or Elijah Moore? What a crazy question. Imagine I said to you before the season, hey, Nick, this is a question we're going to get. And it's a legitimate question, too.
I'd go Tyreek. Sauce is doubtful. He's probably not playing.
I would go Tyreek as well. And do you think Bucky will be good to go very limited? It seems like he's going to be good to go, and they like him a lot. He's a good player.
The report last night was that he's trending towards playing, so he should be out there.
Joe asked from his friend Braden, Cap, are you going to win in the Sunrise League this week?
Probably
not
my
question.
Probably not.
Okay.
Probably not.
Deshaun says Neighbors is the wide receiver 1. So this is in reference to his question here. In this case, I'd play Neighbors and McLeod.
Yep.
All right. From Mark Folkman, thanks for joining us, Mark, like you do every week. Plug DJ Moore in my flex spot just in case Len McConkey is out tonight, or wait and grab Disley off waivers if McConkey is called out. Half PPR, thank you. I would go and I would slot DJ Moore in there. Both DJ Moore and Keenan Allen have had an absurd amount of targets since Shane Waldron left. I think they're averaging like 6 or 7 targets a game at this point, or even more than that. And now they just fired, why can't I? It's slipping the name right here. Eberflus, who was a terrible head coach going into the season, so shouldn't have been the head coach going into the season. Fired him right after Thanksgiving. The Bears have had 9 days to prepare. I would keep DJ Moore locked into your lineup.
Yep, agreed.
From Nick, ask projections for the 2 Vegas running backs, Abdullah and Sincere.
I like Abdullah. I just mentioned it 3 weeks ago, 10 points. 2 weeks ago, 17. Last week, 7.7 against Kansas City, the one team that shuts down all running backs, and he got his most touches that he got in any game. I think it will be Abdullah's backfield.
I think so too. And Abdullah's been there for a while. I think he's a guy that they like, so I'll go with Abdullah.
He's a Dameon Pierce guy.
He's a Dameon Pierce guy. From Sally Caps, Tua Tagovailoa against the Jets, Kyler Murray against the Seahawks. Who would you pick? I pick Tua. He's gonna carve up Nick's Jets over there. It's gonna be a good no Sauce Gardner. That's a problem. I think is CJ Mosley out too, or he's limited. Like I looked at
been like out the whole season.
This entire Jets. I mean, these are the Jets' defensive injuries here. But Sauce is out, another corner out, and Mosley's out again. I'd play Tua in a game that I think the Dolphins are gonna win by, and with a lot of points.
Totally agree. And Kyler had one of his worst games of the year against Seattle 2 weeks ago.
Yep. Ever since Call of Duty came out. I mean,
the Jets defense also struggles with the Shanahan system. All the what's it called? The
coaching tree.
The 49ers destroyed them earlier in the year. The Dolphins historically have destroyed them with Mike McDaniel. So it's a team. Kevin O'Connell, who runs a similar system, that really is not a good matchup for the Jets defense.
Games in Miami too. Yeah, games in Miami. So
yeah,
not super hot. It's not super hot in Florida at this point.
No.
Would you play Elijah Moore over Neighbors? No.
Nah, I wouldn't do that.
From a Jags fan, play Ridley this week. I think so. Tyson Campbell can't stay on the field, and Darby can't cover wide receiver 4 if he tried. I'm sorry if you're Jags, man. They've been one of, if not the most disappointing teams this year. I think a lot of people had higher hopes. All right, from Joshua. So he asked this question on Twitter, and I told him, hey, come join the show. We appreciate you joining the show. Jameis or Kyler Murray in a 6-point per passing touchdown. He's a fairly big underdog after Jaden Reed's poop fest. That was really bad. I missed Jaden Reed's bust week by about a week, my prediction. So if you need a big underdog, an underdog victory, if you need a big game, Nick, who's a bigger underdog than our guy Jabo? Listen, he's praying to God. He's just asking God to relieve him of the pick sixes. That's all he's asking. And I know I got the quote kind of wrong, but I can't remember the Bible quote that he gave about the pick sixes, but that's all he's asking for. So listen, jokes aside, if you really do need a boomer bust, it is always Jameis Winston. He threw for 500 yards on Monday night on a Denver defense who's been good for the past couple of weeks, really good. He lit them up. There were receivers open in the north end zone, so I would go with Jameis Winston. I know Kyler does have a lot of upside every week in terms of rushing. He does have McBride and Marv over there, but it was a low-scoring game against Seattle 2 weeks ago. Mike McDonald is a defensive head coach, and I feel like he schemed really well against Kyler. The Seahawks also getting one of their defensive linemen back, Nwosa, who's playing really, really well for them. So I would rather play Jameis if you really need a win at this point. And if you didn't need a win, I think I might tell you to play Jameis either way. But since you said you really need a win, I would go with Jameis.
Yeah,
you're an underdog, I said you're an underdog and say you need a win. Sorry about that.
He started 5 straight games. Here's what he's done. QB 10, QB 21, QB 6, QB 18, QB 1. His passing volume in those games, 41 passing attempts, 46, 46, 27, 58. Volume's been crazy. Workload's been crazy. Points have been 23, 13, 27, 14, 36. He has been a demon in those games. 11 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 1 rushing touchdown too, so 12 over there. He is the ultimate boomer bust guy. If you are a big underdog, there's nothing more fun than picking up Jameis Winston to let him run the show. Yep.
All right, from Dale Sullivan, PPR, need 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 flex. Let's start with the running backs. Najee Harris, Rico Dowdle, Braylon Allen. You have to play Najee now.
No, I'm going to go with Rico Dowdle. Dowdle came off his best game of the year last week.
He did, but the Giants are so bad.
Huge rest, but it's against that horrible Bengals defense, too.
We keep talking about how horrible the Bengals defense is, but they're not bottom 5 or really 10 in any fantasy category.
So Rico Dowdle. Sometimes I hate the sleeper app. Sometimes it just moves your shit for you. Let me pull it back up real quick. So Dowdle last week.
The Bengals are bad against receivers, but they're only 10.
The middle of the pack against running backs.
Yeah.
Last 5 weeks, you have 22. Then you have the Eagles defense, who's a top 5 defense against the running backs, 8.6. Houston, a top 5 team against running backs, 5.4. At Washington, 10.8. And then last week, it's best game of the year, 22 carries, 112 yards, touchdown, 21.3 fantasy points. I am going to go with Rico Dowdle in one of the easier matchups. He's just struggled with the top defenses in football.
I like to play the matchups. I'm not playing the matchups here. I'm out on the Cowboys. Zeke is still there. As long as Jerry's still the head coach, basically, and the GM and every other role there, I worry about Dowdle. I mean, I just remember the one week that he needed like 0.1 fantasy points or something to beat me, and they pulled him off the field. So I'm going to go Braylon Allen and Najee Harris. 2 wide receivers, DJ Moore, Tyreek Hill, and Malik Neighbors. Still alive, but got to win to get in. Thanks, fellas. I think you should keep DJ Moore locked into your lineup here. Again, an absurd amount of targets, both to him and Keenan Allen. Caleb Williams has continues to improve. They really have to fix that offensive line in the offseason, but he's throwing the ball very well to his 2 guys. I would keep DJ Moore and Tyreek Hill locked in there, and I would bench Neighbors, who could be in a limited workload at this point.
Totally agree.
All right, from Deshaun, pick 2. Garrett Wilson against Jalen Ramsey and the Dolphins, but I guess Ramsey could go take Devontae Adams. Malik Neighbors, JSN going against the Cardinals, who's been on fire lately. Pacheco and Waddle. I think I would bench Pacheco for sure, actually. I'm assuming it is PPR. Whew. I mean, JSN's been on fire. I feel like you have to keep JSN locked in there, and I don't normally say something like
what
that.
What did he do against the Cardinals 2 weeks ago? Pull that number real quick.
You know it?
No, I don't. I'd go Jalen Waddle as my number 1 on this list. I know Waddle has been not consistent this year. He dominates the New York Jets. And now that Sauce is out, TJ Reed is going to be on, will likely be on Tyreek, which means he's going to get a cornerback 3 when Jalen Waddle is a wide receiver 1 in this league. I'm going to give you his stats against the Jets.
I'll read off JSN's real quick while you're looking that off. So JSN had his third highest game of the season, 19.7 fantasy points. He had 6 receptions on 7 targets, 77 receiving yards, and a touchdown. He's had over 70 receiving yards in 4. I'll go back 5 games. He had a really nice number of 69, and then he had 4 straight weeks of over 70 receiving yards. He said over. He didn't. Okay, and this breaks my what I'd like to say here, but in 3 out of his last 4, well. I'm sorry, I'm bouncing around here. His targets are nuts this season. I just want to go through it. So week 1, 2, not good. Then 16, 3, not good. 12, 7, 9, 6, 7, 13, 11, 7, and 4. That's like 80% of his matchups. He's getting 7+ targets this year. And his yards have finally picked up. His touchdowns have not really picked up. He only has one in the last 3 weeks, but he does. If I go back further, he has 3 in the last 4 weeks. So I guess touchdowns have picked up a tiny bit, but I would play JSN and I'll go with Waddle here from what Nick said. Neighbors will be limited. I don't know if Garrett Wilson's going to be shadowed by Ramsey, but Devontae Adams has outscored him the last couple of weeks. And like I said, the Jets are kind of dead at this point. And Pacheco's going to be running into a brick wall of the Chargers defense, and Kareem Hunt is still lurking behind him.
So Jalen Waddle's last season played 2 games against the Jets, its division rival. 8 catches for 114 yards. That's 19.4 fantasy points. And then the later game in the year, the December matchup, which is about the same time this year, 8 catches, 142 yards, and a touchdown. He was a top 3 receiver on the week that week. So he dominated the Jets last season. You got to expect, especially with no Sauce, that he's going to dominate him again this year.
All right. Keep asking those questions, guys. Again, if you're a first-time viewer, this is the Primetime Fantasy Football Podcast. We do a live show every single Sunday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, to answer all of your fantasy football questions. That live show is available on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram like it is right now. If you're watching live, please drop a like on this video. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel, and please hit that bell icon so you have notifications on every time we go live or drop a new video. We will drop a new video twice during the week. We'll drop a show on Tuesday for your waiver wire and kind of a reaction from the week. And then Fridays are all boom and all bust teams. Those shows are pre-recorded and available on our YouTube in an audio and video format, just like this show. And they're available on all audio streaming platforms, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcast, and Anchor. Please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. So guys, I do want to let you guys know we will be off at 9:30 today. So please get your questions in. I personally have a busy day. Nick has some stuff to get done too. So we'll have to bounce at 9:30. So get your questions in now, and we'll get through all of them. We will.
We'll rapid fire them as it gets closer.
Morning, fellas, from Scott. Full PPR. Start CeeDee Lamb or Aaron Jones in my flex. CeeDee Lamb going against the Bengals, who are not great against receivers, and Aaron Jones going up against the Falcons in the Kirk Cousins revenge game.
I would go CeeDee Lamb. I like the matchup. Again, that Bengals defense, it is the highest over-under of the week. That defense is horrible. The Cowboys off tremendous rest, have not played a football game since Thanksgiving. They've had plenty of time to prepare. They should be ready to have at least the offense rolling in this game.
The Bengals allow the 11th most fantasy points to wide receivers, which isn't a crazy number, but I think CeeDee Lamb is too talented to bench. I would keep him in your lineup.
Yep.
Okay, Stanley says, hi. Hey, Stanley, thanks for joining the show. From Mike Duke, half PPR, Juwan Jennings going up against the Bears, who are very tough against receivers. Calvin Ridley going against the Jags, who are very friendly to receivers. And then Ladd McConkey going up against the Chiefs, and he is banged up. I'm going to go with Ridley here. He's at double digits, I believe, in 3 of his last 5 games. I read it off a couple minutes ago. But more importantly, the Jags allow the most fantasy point, the 4th most fantasy points to wide receivers, an average of 31.8.
Yeah, and obviously you get that Ridley revenge game. There's nothing sweeter than that. So I'll definitely
It is a revenge game. I do like revenge games.
Yeah.
Mark's in a similar situation where Jaden Reed got me 0 and need upside. Play Jameis Winston over Caleb Williams even. Don't mind the risk, but I've never considered this option. Yeah, I mean, I think Jameis will throw for more yards than Caleb Williams, and the Bears have liked running the football. Now, we don't know what the offense will look like today. Like, it'll still look good, but in terms of running the football, we've seen a couple different versions of the Bears this season with the coaching changes, where Roschon Johnson was getting a lot of the goal line work. I would play Jameis over Caleb if you do need a win.
So Jameis Winston, this is like crazy to me, actually. He's played 5 games this year. Obviously, we're in week 14 now. He's already a top 32 quarterback on the year. And that might be like, all right, whatever, like he's a top 32 quarterback. There have been 32 teams. Everybody plays every week. He's played 5 games and he's already cracked that high in the fantasy football season. I read off the passing volume numbers just one more time because this is outrageous if you don't recognize it. 41, 46, 27 being the low game, and 58. With that kind of passing volume, you are a lock for fantasy football. You can throw 5 picks. Like with that kind of volume, you are putting up numbers on the other end. And we've seen it. He's got 3 games this year, over 330 yards, one of them almost being 500 yards. He's got a 3-touchdown game, a 4-touchdown game. I mean, he's just been so upside. And listen, it's not against teams that are bad against quarterbacks. The Chargers are top 5. Pittsburgh he played against, they're the number 1 team against the quarterback position. So yeah, guess what? I understand that's scary because he's playing Pittsburgh this week. Who cares? New Orleans is actually top 10 defense against the quarterback position. So he's been delivering in big ways. So I absolutely am going to be all over this one.
Scott Green, morning guys, full PPR, Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston? I think Russ is your safer. I think Russ is your safer play if you want a safe number, but only if George Pickens is playing. If George Pickens is out, you'll know at 11:30 if he's active or not. I don't think Russell Wilson should be started with George Pickens out of the lineup.
Give me Jabu no matter what.
All right. Who has the better team this week, Nick or Nick? I mean, in our league, I probably have the better team because Nick sold off his team. I mean, I'm in the playoffs.
Excuse me.
Nick's fighting for the playoffs.
The questions this week, we will take a look because I don't know. I like my Tanks Bigsby start this week.
I don't think my bye weeks are bad this week. I think I'm okay.
I don't actually like my Tank Bigsby start. Don't take that seriously, guys. Yeah, no, it's definitely going to be Nick. My team is trying to save its season, although we are pretty much tanking the year away because we want better draft pick next season.
I have a playoff spot locked up, and even with a win, I think I can move from. Am I the 4 seed at this point? I think I'm the 4 seed. Yeah, I'm the 4. I mean, I would need to win, and I would need my brother to lose, and then I'll jump him for the 3. But I don't know how much that would matter. And I'm trying to avoid our buddy Jared. I do not want to play Jared in the first round. That's what I'm trying to avoid.
Jared is the killer. He ends fantasy football season.
Yeah, Jared's playoff history is sneaking in as like a 5 or 6 seed and winning championships. I don't want to play Jared for sure. Ghost Man, Devontae Smith or Braylon Allen in the flex. Play Devontae Smith. I know he's coming off a hamstring injury, which just seemed to linger, but the Eagles are in full playoff mode, and they're facing a Panthers team who they are going to beat. They do not need Devontae Smith to win this matchup. He is playing because he's healthy. So I would play Devontae Smith. Going to get a couple good reps there with Jalen Hurts, and they should win that game.
Totally agree.
And from Scott Green, full PPR, Will Dissly or Kyle Pitts. Dissly going up against the Chiefs, who do allow the fourth most fantasy points to tight ends. And then there's Kyle Pitts in the Kirk Cousins revenge game going up against the Minnesota Vikings. I'm looking to see what they do against tight ends. They allow the 11th fewest, 12th fewest, if my math is correct. So Dissly technically is the better matchup. I think I kind of want to win Dissly.
I know you can't decide because you don't know Ladd McConkey's status, but if I knew Ladd was out, I would definitely want Dissly. So if he gets ruled out early in the day, maybe. If not, I'm riding the Kyle Pitts experience. You got to take the bad with the good. Kyle Pitts any week could get you the game-winning week, and that's kind of what you hope he could do from time to time. So I would ride the experience.
Okay, from Trev, it's a deep league flex. Sincere McCormick or Ray Davis.
This spot, I would go McCormick. I would take the Raiders running back too. I know Ray Davis gets a good amount of workload. Last week was an outlier because of the snow game. They were up so much. They tried to rotate the backs out and a lot of their players out. If you go look at the snap share from all their skill position guys, it is much lower than it normally is because they just rotated so much. And then Ray Davis got the bump because of it.
I agree with you, and I think the Raiders might compete in this game. The Bucs have looked shaky at best over the past few weeks. They kind of should have lost the game last week. Adam Thielen kind of got robbed on that last second non-touchdown, Nick. The Twitter refs reviewed that one. I will also roll with McCormick in a game where I think the Raiders will compete but not win, and they should not win because they definitely do not need wins going forward. All right, guys, we have no more questions at the moment. If you have any other questions, drop them in the chat over the next 8 minutes left until we got to hop off. Let's say 5 minutes. We're going to close off questions in about 5 minutes. So keep dropping those questions while you can. Dale Sullivan, PPR, Jalen Waddle, Quentin Johnston, Khalil Shakir, Marvin Harrison Jr. need 2. Also, should I smash Ferguson or Dissly? Let's go with the receivers first. Nick, I think we're both in on Waddle, but if you want to just give the stats that you gave earlier, I'll give you your flowers on that.
Yeah, so Jalen Waddle in his 2 matchups against the New York Jets last season, 8 catches, 114 yards. That's nearly a 20-point game. And then the later game, the December game, 8 catches, 142 yards, and a touchdown. No Sauce Gardner in this game. There's a very big upside for Jalen Waddle to have a very big week.
I have trust issues with all 3 of your other receivers, but I think I'll go with Marvin Harrison, knowing how talented he is. I think I want the best talent at that point. Shakir used to be Allen's main guy, but over his last 4 weeks, I guess so. But I mean, his numbers still aren't great over the last few weeks.
Nope. Last 5 games, rounded points, 14, 20, 11, 12, 15. That is consistency, which Marvin Harrison does not give you in fantasy. I'm going Shakir.
I want a nice boomer bust guy as your second wide receiver and going Marvin Harrison Jr.
3 of those 5 games that I just read you were also against top 5 teams against the wide receiver position. So this is the easiest matchup he has had since week 4. He's on my all boom team. That's why I got these notes on.
Okay. All right.
I'm going Shakir.
I respect it. And then should he go Ferguson or Dissly? I really like avoiding those Cowboys, and I really like Dissly's matchup. Chiefs allow the 4th most fantasy points, 2 tight ends. I want to see what Ferguson's done over the last 3 weeks. I don't think it's anything good though.
I think he's been out because
he was out the last 2 weeks, and even before that, 4.4 and 2.1. I wouldn't roll Ferguson out there. I'd roll Dissly out there.
I would go with Dissly if McConkey gets ruled out. If not, I'd go with Ferguson and go on the higher over-under game.
Okay. I mean, good point. You can make this decision at 7:00 tonight.
Yeah.
Dissly's numbers, he did have a goose egg last week. That's no good, but his last 2 matches are 18 and 8.7. So. All right, from Ghost Man. Bills defense going up against the Rams in a very high over-under game, and the Saints defense in a low over-under game against the Giants. Play the Saints defense. That's probably why you picked them up, was for this specific matchup. Play the Saints defense.
Totally agree.
Last question from Ghost Man. Braylon Allen or Rico Dowdle? I think, Nick, you kind of had this debate a couple minutes ago. I think you liked Rico.
I do like Rico. I do prefer Rico to Allen as the resident Jets fan, too. A high over under for Rico and Braylon Allen. for Rico Dowdle and the Cowboys in the matchup. I do not think that Braylon Allen is going to have the workhorse workload that you might have hoped for. I think Isaiah Davis, who's a rookie for the Jets, after the bye week, they used him a lot more. I think those two are going to split carries. It'll probably be a 60-40 split rather than the 70-30 that you would hope for from Braylon Allen, where Rico Dowdle is coming off his best game of the year, has not played since Thanksgiving. It's a very good spot for him.
All right. Then we have a kicker question. Younghoe Koo or Jason Myers, who's my Seahawks kicker this week.
I do not want Koo going up to Minnesota. He's been very rough this season. Minnesota, very cold weather. I'd take the Hawks kicker out in Arizona.
I want to look at the over-unders here. Seattle's at 44.5, and they are in the Dome. They're in the I forget what they call this, the Cardinal Stadium. I think they renamed it at this point. The Vikings over-under is 45.5, so they're about a point difference. I want to look at the point differentials between the two. I feel like on Red Zone, when I'm watching Red Zone, I feel like Koo's missed a lot of kickers.
Yeah.
A lot of kickers. A lot of kicks, I should say. But he's still the 10th ranked kicker on the season. I mean, his numbers here on Fantasy Pros are 7-3, 5-9, the bye, and then 8. And then we have Jason Myers, 4-2.
I feel like part of that's because there's been
12,
so many
6, and 11
here.
Yeah, I'll go with Jason Myers. I'll go with my Seahawks kicker. All right, guys, 9:26. We're going to close off questions here. We got 2 more left, and these are the last 2 we will do. From Scott. Okay, hey, guys, I'll play Lamb this week, but I am wondering at running back, PPR. Do you prefer Aaron Jones over Chubb? Chubb scored twice in his last game against Pitt, but does Jones have more touches? I think Jones is the better matchup. He's going to get more touches and more receptions going against the Falcons defense that has not looked great. So I'll go with Jones here.
Totally agree. I do not want Nick Chubb in that matchup.
Higher over under as well. All right. From Super Size Senpai, you have 3 questions here. We're going to get through all 3 of your questions, and then we are out of here. Who should I start in my flex this week? Full PPR. Bucky Irvin going up against the Raiders, or Nick Westbrook-Ikhine going up against the Jags?
I'm going to go with Bucky Irvin.
I'm going to go with Bucky Irvin too. He's been too consistent. From Super again, who should I start my quarterback slot? Kyler Murray or Aiden O'Connell? I am not playing Aiden O'Connell any week. Like I don't know. I don't know who you have to give me to make me say Aiden O'Connell, but it's not Kyler.
It's never going to be AOC for me.
No. And this would normally be a nonsense question. I promise you there's no nonsense questions because I have made a lot of nonsense decisions on my season. But with Kyler being Mr. Inconsistent this year, I know I have to ask this question whenever starting another quarterback. I know he's been inconsistent, but he does have the better matchup. He's the better talent. And AOC, I feel like every week AOC can get benched. Kyler's not going to get benched. They won't bench him. So
agreed.
Alrighty, guys. Well, thank you for joining us for our Week 14 show. We appreciate you guys and all the love that you gave us. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. And drop a like on this video or any video that you do watch in the future. Hit the bell icon so you get notifications every time we go live. We do drop 2 videos a week, Tuesdays and Fridays. They are pre-recorded, uploaded to both our YouTube channel and our audio streaming platforms. If you'd like to listen to an audio platform, are available literally everywhere. iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcast, Anchor. If you have any other questions, go to social media, PrimeTimeFFPod, Twitter, Instagram, Primetime Fantasy Football Podcast. Last question, since we're both live still, Mo Bibbin. Matt Stafford against the Bills or Caleb Williams against the 49ers. I like Stafford in a higher over-under matchup. His offense is completely healthy. It should be a high-scoring, fun fantasy matchup.
Totally agree.
All right, guys. Thanks again. Have a great Week 14. We do hope you make your playoffs, and we hope you join us next week for the Week 15 live show, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, for your first round of your playoffs. Best of luck, and we'll talk to you on Tuesday.